In the scorching heat of Mexico, a team's meteoric rise through the season has captured the racing world's attention. McLaren are back as contenders, driven by the remarkable talents of Oscar Piastri and the electrifying Lando Norris. Both are incredible overtakers. They're like lightning over a single lap and know how to keep themselves out of trouble. As they surge ahead, McLaren doesn't just chase victories, they champion integrity in the sport. In a daring move, they've challenged the recklessness of certain drivers, demanding a higher standard of sportsmanship. Are they right to do so? Let's find out. With just 3 races left this season, I think my favourite storyline of the year has been McLaren's return to form. The team are a titan of Formula 1 and for far too long have been languishing in the midfield with financial problems and poor management. They've played host to some of the best drivers in the history of the sport: Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, Niki Lauda, and of course Lewis Hamilton. After Lewis though, they really started to go downhill. I'm not saying that Lewis was the thing that made them good before that, it's just a coincidence that in 2013, Lewis left and McLaren's performance tanked. But with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri in the garage this season and a new technical team, they've developed a really good car. It is those two drivers who have been the most impressive thing for McLaren this year though. Sure, we knew Lando Norris was good before, but this year, in a competitive car, he's shown some serious skills. And what about Oscar Piastri? He's had a rookie season to remember. 2 podiums and a sprint race win in a year when the battle for places behind Max Verstappen is as fierce as it is, has been astonishing. Despite the relative poor results in Mexico, the race was just another example of how good they both are. Norris was forced to start from 17th on the grid after failing to set a competitive lap in qualifying. But the Briton scythed through the field in Mexico City, and even after losing positions because of an unfortunately timed red flag and a poor restart, he continued reeling off overtakes to finish 5th. There were 48 on-track overtakes during the race, and Lando made 13 of them. His team was floored by his race day performance, with team boss Andrea Stella comparing it to one of Alonso's finest wins when he worked with the Spaniard at Ferrari at the 2012 European Grand Prix. This race made me think of Valencia 2012. At the time we started 11th and then won the race, Stella said, as he was asked where it ranked among Norris's finest drives. We were having exactly this conversation on the pit wall. Will Joseph, his race engineer, turned to me and said, "That's one of Lando's best." And I said, "Will, that's one of the best of all." So many overtakes in Mexico, when yesterday, if you read the quotes, everyone was saying it's so difficult to overtake, while managing power unit temperatures and having to do lift and coast. I'm just impressed. One of the best days for a driver that I've been a part of. The talk before the race was that McLaren could seriously challenge Red Bull on Sunday, but as good a race as Lando drove, his qualifying performance meant that a challenge for a race win was never actually on. It all went wrong at the start of qualifying when his first banker run on medium tyres was aborted following an instruction from the pit wall. That left him with everything to do on his final effort when there would be no margin for error thanks to how compact the entire field has been this weekend. But after fumbling his lap as he failed to keep things tidy, Norris then was unable to improve after encountering yellow flags for Fernando Alonso's spun Aston Martin at Turn 1. After his impressive performance on Sunday, he was asked if he was happy with the result, but like a real competitor, he responded by saying, "Why would I ever be happy about a day like Saturday?" It shows just how high expectations are within the team now that despite a race of this quality from Lando, he's still disappointed with himself. In fairness, there was still room for improvement on Sunday, though it would have required better driving from Lando's competitors rather than himself. He said some of his rivals showed terrible awareness of other cars during the restart after the red flag. The McLaren driver described how he had to back off to avoid being caught in a multi-car crash as drivers moved towards each other on the high-speed run to the first corner. "I probably had to avoid a very big crash," he explained. "Just people coming across, not probably realizing that people can be 3 abreast. I avoided 2 extremely big crashes, which would have been very nasty. So a bit more self-awareness of some drivers would be great." He lost 5 places on that run to the first corner, and it was partly his fault. He could have had a much better start. But on multiple occasions, he had to pull back as cars swerved into spaces he was already occupying. This wasn't the only occasion during the race that Lando was at risk from the poor driving of others though. Late on in the race, Lando had worked his way up to 6th place and was quickly closing in on the struggling George Russell. George is known to be a, how do I put this politely? Enthusiastic defender of positions? Lando's race engineer Will Joseph made it very clear to him that he had to be careful making a move on George this late in the race. We know what Russell is like, he's all or nothing, so you just have patience with him. Not that Norris paid any attention to that, as he put Russell under pressure, forcing the Mercedes driver to outbrake himself into turn 4, putting him offline for turns 5 and 6, giving Lando an easy pass in the end. It was a masterfully constructed move in a place on the track where you have no right to make a move on a driver of Formula 1 caliber, but Lando did. The move was a big contrast to the one that Lando made on Daniel Ricciardo just a few laps earlier. Lando made the move at turn 4 again, but it was in a very different style. He went wheel to wheel with the AlphaTauri, finding space on the outside and the grip to make it stick. The move was only possible because he knew that Ricciardo, who is a very hard racer himself, would still battle respectfully. If Lando had pulled the same late braking move on Russell, the Mercedes driver would almost certainly have just driven him off the outside of the turn. Russell going deep into that corner as Lando pulled the switchback move is proof of that. Lando wasn't the only McLaren driver to get involved with some questionable driving from his competitors though. Oscar Piastri had an incident of his own where dangerous driving from a rival almost ended his race. Oscar has shown maturity far beyond his experience since joining the grid this year. He's played the team game when needed and driven exceptionally well at most weekends. He defended beautifully against Yuki Tsunoda, frustrating the Japanese driver for a few laps before Yuki made a mistake. At turn 1, Yuki tried to make a move around the outside of Oscar, but the Aussie held his line and Tsunoda, desperate to finally get the move done, turned in too early, made contact and ended his own race. He chopped across, said Piastri, who went on to finish 8th while Tsunoda was 4 places further back, as the incident ultimately compromised his race. Tsunoda fumed over the radio as he made his way back on track, swearing as he does to express his frustration. To add to his anger, the stewards investigated but took no action. Asked to discuss the incident post-race, a clearly angry Tsunoda said, "I don't want to comment about these things. I already commented enough when I was driving. We were showing a good performance and it's such a shame I ended up like that." Piastri's take on what unfolded was simple as he declared, "Some big moves, I think hard racing. The one at the end on lap 49, I'm not really sure what happened. I was just braking and then we touched wheels. Nothing really more than that." This calmness has been a feature of Oscar Piastri's media visits this season. At the start of the Belgian Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz seemed to have absolutely zero awareness of the cars around him, just like Lando said earlier in the video. He cut into Piastri, pinning him against the walled apex at turn 1 and ending Oscar's race. It was an appallingly bad move, and if it had been at any other point than lap 1 turn 1, Carlos would surely have received a reprimand from the stewards. After that incident, Oscar was incredibly calm, just shrugging it off. He would have been completely in the right if he wanted to call out Carlos's terrible driving as well. But what do you think of the McLaren team's statements? Are there a lot of dangerous drivers on the grid? Is George Russell as reckless as McLaren implied? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below and subscribe to the channel for more Formula 1 news and analysis. Until next time, drive safe and bye for now.